Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today we learned some pretty big news. So recently on the PC server, procs have been disabled in PvP. Now, this doesn't mean just sets that deal proc damage, but all sets that have a proc condition in the game. It essentially limited the sets you could use in PvP to about 20 different sets, not including any mythic or monster helms or anything like that. Now, this test period has gone on for about 3 weeks, and during this time, you could only use the sets that ZeniMax has mentioned. And they wanted to see if these sets had a big impact on performance. Surprise, surprise, it didn't. In fact, ZeniMax found the performance was actually even worse during this event because they felt like there were more people in PvP, and the procs themselves didn't really have any of an impact on the performance itself. And this is something that I personally noticed when I was playing, as when I entered the main campaign with only about 2 bars for each faction, I was looking at 400 or 500 milliseconds of ping, so definitely not having that desired impact on performance that we wanted to see. But ZeniMax has decided, because they felt like the player base loved the no proc environment so much, that they wanted to continue this event up until the Q3 update comes out. So that will be even up until possibly September. So let's talk a little bit about how the event kind of went. At first, I was pretty excited for a no-proc environment. I think just like everybody else, I was kind of tired of getting Vaitran staffed down by everybody and was ready for a PvP experience where maybe that wasn't so common. Now, I definitely enjoyed playing a little bit of Nightblade during the event, but I quickly realized that if I wasn't playing the kind of generic spec that class can play, there was not going to be much, if at all, any build diversity. I could switch up what weapons I had in my hands, but man, with 18 sets to choose from and a whole slew of sets that you would think do not count as proc sets, counting as proc sets, yeah, I didn't like it past the first day because I couldn't play any builds. Now, I don't know if other people maybe had the same opinion. I know that a lot of people are very, very tired of the proc meta, but I personally didn't think it was worth sacrificing all of the build diversity that we have. I think that you guys know, if you've watched me for a long time, that I love to play different specs, and I love to try things that are maybe a little bit out of the box that you wouldn't expect to be so effective, and then maybe sometimes they work, maybe sometimes they don't. Long story short, I can't do any of that because I can only use the sets that ZeniMax has chosen from, and those sets are just base stat sets. You know, we get like penetration, we get things like Amber Plasm, which is the most diverse of the sets, offering all regens. So there you go. I was not a big fan, and I know that might not be the most popular opinion because, yes, procs are a big issue for some people, but personally, I didn't feel like procs were so insanely strong that there was no chance to fight them without using a proc build, but I definitely understood that some of them could use more counterplay, and we're coming back to that Vaitran staff again. I think the big issues were really undodgeable and unblockable procs, as well as heavy dot spamming procs that you could just apply by constantly throwing the same cheap move at your opponent. But I'll be honest, quite a few of the proc sets did have proper counterplay, and even a set like Crimson that you see is so popular in PvP right now, you can purge and you can just walk outside of the Crimson thing. Most people running the Crimson set aren't on a fast build anyway, so, you know, there was some give and take for the procs. I mean, there were definitely problems, but they were definitely some things that I liked and some things that added big time to build diversity. Even the damage procs, things like Winterborn, you know? How am I going to play a full-on Frost Mage with the 18 sets that we have available? I'm just not. So if ZeniMax decides that they definitely want to keep it a non-proc environment for these next few months, I think they could benefit immensely from figuring out how to include some of these non-damage proccing sets, things like Stun's Favor, Seducer, things that you have to actually use in your build and they don't just give you a free amount of outgoing damage or healing. Because I think the player base was looking for specifically that in a PvP campaign, not just 18 sets to choose from and pretty generic class builds to play. And I also think for the same reason, that's why the test was enjoyable for a short period of time, and that's why this PvP environment I don't think will be very fun for most people long term, and it's because they just cannot play different builds that they could have played before. So now let's talk a little bit about class balance during this no proc meta. Procs have been an integral part of PvP for a long time. PvP has been balanced around the fact that procs are available, and the different classes' strengths and weaknesses have been balanced around the different proc sets that exist in the game as well. So when all of the procs are removed, we really see the discrepancy between classes for which ones benefit a lot more from max stat and which ones don't. A good example would be something like Stamina Nightblade and Magicka Sorcerer. These are going to be very common during this no proc meta simply because they are probably the best classes that you can play because they benefit the most from the sets that we have access to. Whereas something like that max HP Warden that we saw a lot of last patch that had about 40k hit points and could still deal a lot of damage is going to be much less viable because it relied on the different proc sets in order to get the damage that it had and then used its big hit point pool in order to heal itself. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm a massive fan of that Warden build. Instead, what I'm saying is we've lost a huge amount of build diversity in order to get this non-proc environment. And for the sake of build diversity and gameplay balance, I think it would be a good idea for ZeniMax to do their best to at least add the non-damaging and healing procs back into PvP for the duration of these changes. I know I'm sounding a little bit like a broken record there, but that's kind of the gist of this video, is these changes would be okay as long as they didn't limit the sets so severely. And now I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming changes to the champion system. This is going to have a huge impact on what PvP feels to play like. Now, I've been on the PTS doing some testing against NPCs and against players to just kind of get an idea of how damage will feel. So in short, in PvP, everybody's base damage with the abilities they use and everybody's base healing power feels better. On the flip side, all the base proc damage that proc sets deal, as well as the base healing power from procs, feels lower than it used to. And this result makes sense mathematically. Everybody's going to be getting a lot more base weapon and spell damage than they had before, and that's going to result in all of your base damage and healing going up, and we're going to be losing out on those big percentage increases that were giving proc sets a huge amount of damage bonus in PvP before. In fact, the entire approach of the new champion system was to not make procs better, but to make your character itself better instead. And I really like that. I mean, I think that the new CP system actually did a good job trying to bring balance to procs, and I think that if ZeniMax had allowed us to use procs when this new patch comes out, it would feel not as bad as it does on the live server right now, with procs being what they are. So I was caught a little by surprise when ZeniMax said today that they're going to be extending the no proc event, because I was quite looking forward to testing things and seeing just how PvP feels with the nerf that procs are taking with the new champion system. But anyway, you know, that's something we're going to have to wait and see for. And honestly, you know, by the time we're allowed to use procs again in PvP, there will probably be a lot of balance changes and revisions to the champion system anyway. So there you guys go. Those are my thoughts on the announcement that we're not going to be seeing procs for at least a few more months in PvP now. I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you think that this is good for the game? Do you guys like how no proc PvP feels? Are you like me and you miss playing maybe some of the builds that you had access to before you could only pick from 18 different sets? I would really love to know what you guys think about this one in particular, because it is a very huge change to PvP for the next few months. So let me know down in the comment section below. And I know I was playing a lot of different classes in today's video. These are all just a bunch of older clips that I had that I essentially have no use for, because I'm not going to be able to play any of these builds for the next few months. So I thought I'd share them with you guys as we talked about what's going to be happening to Cyrodiil. If you guys really enjoyed the video, consider hitting that like button, and of course, if you love the channel, hit that subscribe button. I create regular ESO content, so be sure to stick around for more PvP goodness in the future. If you guys want to send in your clips for the top 5, or if you want to send in a build to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. Check out my website, KristoferESO.com, for written guides to all my builds, as well as a hub for all of my ESO content. Check me out on Twitch for that live gameplay, and give me a follow on Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with what's going on with me. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They can give you better ping to your favorite games, and they're free to try for the first month. Link down below in the description. And last but certainly not least, a massive thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I couldn't do this job, so thank you so much for help and support. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and watching today. Again, I would love to hear what you guys think about this announcement. As always, thank you everybody so much for tuning in today, and have a great night, everybody.